Okay, can everybody see the screen? I'll take that as a yes, Dave. Okay.
I can see. Sorry.
I can see it. Thank you.
Great. So first, let's talk about who we are. I work for Sustainable Hudson Valley, and we have a contract with Ulster County because Ulster County wanted to initiate a feasibility study and strategic plan for a reuse innovation center. The goal for Ulster County is to divert waste from the waste stream. And we have contracted with Dave Benink of Reuse Consulting. Dave is a vast expert in this area, having been worked with over 200 reuse organizations for many years, and he runs a reuse innovation center in Bellingham, Washington. And he is on the call, and he will be doing some of this presentation with us. I think what we're going to do is just go through our initial presentation, Dave, and then we can do sort of start a discussion and ask questions at the end of that. And then at noon, we'll go on with our subsequent section of, what's the latest and all about you and all about how you might be a part of it and what you hope to get out of it and questions you may have and suggestions you may have and people you may know that we might want to involve, and we'll get into a whole discussion at that point. But first, let's just get through the intro. You agree, Dave?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, terrific. And if people want to introduce themselves in the chat, that would be great too, while we're going through this. And just let us know who you are and what you do and or if appropriate, what you'd like to do in conjunction with potentially a reuse innovation center. So here's a bit more about Dave. 44 states, wow. 80 reuse operations, 200 total. And I am Barbara Todd, of course, Program Coordinator for Sustainable Hudson Valley, Senior Support Person, and basically the soul and driving force of Sustainable Hudson Valley. Melissa Everett will be joining us a bit later. So the project goals, as determined by Ulster County, and I think that originally the idea was born in the recycling committee for Ulster County. And they created an RFP, and in large part, I think due to Dave's vast experience, they felt we were the best people to work on this project. We looked at a great deal of information that they already had about the waste stream. Dave visited a lot of individual businesses and organizations in Ulster County who work in reuse areas and learned about what's being done, what potentially could be done. He visited UCRA. He stayed on the tipping floor for a day and to see everything that was going on there. UCRA being the Ulster County Resource Recovery Association agency, excuse me. And so the goal is to evaluate the feasibility of creating a single RIC facility, but we are not ruling out the possibility of, models that might involve, different locations or, a showroom one place, for example, and, a center somewhere else where manufacturing could happen and drop off could happen and so forth. So anyway, we'll get into more about the models. That's part of what we'll present today. Determine the best activities and programming, size, locations. Yeah, so there's a great deal there's a great deal that goes into this. And we started this last fall, and it's been a lot of very interesting, actually, work, surprisingly interesting, because the waste stream is always changing. It is different in different places, and there's so much going on with it, and so many people working in reuse, and yet there's so much more that we can still do. So yeah, I mean, obviously Ulster County's goal is to maximize diversion opportunities and maximize the actual amount of diversion from the landfill. And so part of what we had to do was identify what materials are most amenable to that and what materials might potentially be profitable for entrepreneurs. And we looked at a lot of factors. We had an elaborate chart that Dave created weighing all these factors, and we could get into all that detail, but then we'd be here all day. But you'll see a glimpse of that as we go further along. And the last bullet point I can't stress enough, robust stakeholder involvement. We've been working with county agencies, we've been working with UCRA, we've been working with, we were going to have a meeting next Monday in which we hope to engage haulers in the county. We're trying to reach everybody we can, and today we particularly wanted to focus on entrepreneurs and people who could be, want to be, or training to be entrepreneurs in reuse functions that might be partners with or even members of the Reuse Innovation Center. And I'll let Dave talk a little bit later about what the difference between those is. Any questions so far? Okay, let's keep going. This is just an overall picture to give you an idea of the whole project. We went through understanding the waste stream. That was a lot of study and as I described earlier, and visiting locations and so forth, working with UCRA and the Zero Waste team committee that's trying to identify a zero waste plan for Ulster County. Ulster County, I will mention for anyone who doesn't know, is one of the few counties out there, if I don't even know of any others, that has a Department of the Environment. Ulster County is committed in a very special and unique way to its environment and to reducing the amount of waste that goes to the landfill. So they have support for this in ways that haven't been necessarily available to people starting reuse innovation centers or other reuse businesses in other parts of the country. So this is a huge opportunity as we see it because of the support that exists. So we're at the point now, we've started to conceptualize the solution, but again, we need feedback from everybody involved. And you folks, as potential partners, entrepreneurs, or people who know people who might be, your feedback is vital to us. Your questions, your ideas, we want to hear them. And all of that feeds into what the site should look like. And ultimately, these decisions are not up to us. They're up to Ulster County, and as was stressed yesterday in a meeting with the recycling committee and several of the legislators, that's a decision that ultimately has to be made by various specific areas, specific entities within Ulster County, including the legislature, including hopefully the Recycling Oversight Committee and UCRA and other agencies. And so finalize workable plan. Yeah, the goal is to have something we can actually act on. So this wasn't just an exercise in studying something. They want to do it. So we need to know how to do it, and we're defining that now, or at least we're defining our recommendations based on everything, including your feedback today. This is one example. It is not the plan. Okay, this is one example of a potential Reuse Innovation Center and what it might look like. And I'm going to let Dave talk about this.
All right, thank you. And yeah, today's theme is about when we talk about stakeholders, it's about entrepreneurs or about reuse businesses and how to get people involved and how to get them working. And I appreciate everybody coming. So imagine that we find a location and it looks like this. It's a building uh, that has an outdoor yard and hopefully more outdoor space than this, but we had to, draw up something. So basically the idea is that you have a center, not a store. Remember, this is my 31st year of dealing with the circular economy and helping over 200 businesses. And what we found after helping so many businesses that there were common challenges between them. Like one of them was not enough space, or the space was too expensive, or whatever. And so we've tried to solve a lot of those problems. And what we realized, if we work together in a business cooperative kind of scenario, that we could overcome some of these costs. We could act bigger than we are individually. We could act together and make ourselves a bigger operation, and take advantage of economies of scale, things like that. Um, so you have your reuse store in the middle. Um, Kind of a warehouse space, but you also have a showroom space, which is on higher end, um, lower ceilings, better lighting, that kind of thing. And so you have a mixture of that. Then you have an outdoor space where you have things that should be outdoors, like pipe and lumber and things like that. Some of it's undercover, some of it's not. So in addition to the storage of all these materials, and when I say materials, there are 25 different material types that we've identified that could be in the Reuse Innovation Center. And that includes like things like appliances and building materials and textiles and, uh, you know, uh, electronics, even things like that. So in addition to that, there are some workspaces that you see there. Perhaps one of them is occupied by an artist that uses reclaimed materials in their sculptures or something like that. Or another one is a woodworker and they make reclaimed wood tables. And where are they going to find the wood? Literally right outside their door, their shop is a massive amount of wood. So they can make their wood tables. And so what you have is you have supply and demand in the same building. You have the synergy of having all these businesses working together, located together. When they promote themselves, they promote the group, um, by default. Uh, in addition to that, you have some exciting things like there is a recycling center, where a lot of things could be recycled. There's a repair center. That is, I don't know, I'm really excited about that one. We've talked about a tool library that's attached to the repair center. And also the big one, which is a office classroom. And the classroom is the fact that we are hoping not just to, start these businesses and become a static operation, but to be a continually growing operation. So we want to be doing workforce training, and the trainees will get to work at each of these different businesses and experience that. And then they will be able to maybe apply at the business that they like, to doing the things that they enjoy doing. And so I know it's like a fire hose, but basically that's what this diagram is trying to convey.
Dave, what is the difference between like a member and a partner? And use these, how do you
Um,
use these terms? And I just want people to
yeah,
understand.
good question. So like when we talk about the members of the Reuse Innovation Center in Bellingham, those really aren't, they're not official members. We haven't got to that point where we're saying, look, we have a contract, or you have to sign up or whatever. But it's really people that are part of this operation. They might be co-located there. They are, part of our everyday communications and things like that. Um, And so that would be, like in Bellingham, there's 2 deconstruction firms that feed the center, and they also do hauling, and they feed the center. And then there's the actual center, and then there's the training center, meaning the Building Deconstruction Institute is, a member, and it takes up space. There's an appliance repair person, that is, so when we get appliances, they go to that person, and they clean them up and get them ready, get them working, and then they send it back to the showroom. And so that's what I mean by a member. That's, where there's this active relationship that's going on, and expectations for that. But then you have partners, and that would be really like the recycling companies that we deal with, other reuse stores that are independent and located in other cities. Those are example of more like what I think of as partners.
Okay, so you can be part of this whether or not you would want to or benefit from having a physical presence at this center.
Yeah, that's right. So we want, right off the bat, my very first trip to Ulster County, I wanted to visit all of the reuse stores. I wanted to honor them and say, that they have already been fighting the fight. Whatever we think of as the waste stream in Ulster County, you have to understand that the waste stream is bigger than waste. It's all the things that have been wasted and all the things that haven't been wasted, as in recycling or reuse. And so you have existing reuse stores, you have existing recycling operations that have removed things from the waste stream. And if they hadn't done that, it would have become part of the landfill. So we honor their current efforts and then want to supplement that. So that's why we want to make sure we have partnerships, this, for lack of a better term, with all of those groups, so that we can, try and work together and take advantage of situations. There's going to be times when we have large quantities of things, and we want to be able to distribute that out and share that, as one example.
Okay, move on. So Dave, I guess this is you too. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but if you want to add anything to this, this is part of what Dave did in the beginning to learn about the waste flow and situation in Ulster County.
Right. Yeah. So, so our initial mission statement, if you will, for this project was Ulster County as a waste stream. They don't want to have a waste stream. They want us to divert it. They want it gone. And so what are we going to do about it? And so we met with, a number of stakeholders through this process, to find out like how things work. How does the material flow through the county, and where does it come from? Where does it go? And how does it get there? And how does it get everywhere? And so I visited transfer stations, for example. I visited recycling operations and reuse businesses and all of that. And I essentially did my best to track waste as it flowed through the county. It's like, the Hudson River flows through the county in a way, but so does the waste. It's neither one can be stopped. They're flowing, they're daunting, but they can be interrupted, they can be channeled. And so that's what we're looking to do. And I actually went to the transfer station. I don't know if that's another slide, but I think it is. So yeah, that's right. So I actually went to the transfer station and took a shift, and we, there was wood, there was metal, there was reusable materials. If you look in the bottom right photo there, that is a $500 door set. It was a set of 3 doors, and I valued them at $500. None of the glass is broken. that I remember anyway, and amazingly, after they dumped them off on the ground. And so there were also things that I felt like were beyond our reach, some of that material in garbage bags in the upper right photo. But it basically informed our process that there are valuable things in the waste stream. We saw it ourselves. There were recyclable things in the waste stream that we thought could be diverted. And there were materials that I felt like we could make a product out of. If we call those value-added products, where we take existing materials from the waste stream and we try to create a product from them, especially if they repeat. Like if it's a product, to us it's a product, to others it's a waste item. But we look at something that's generated repeatedly and say that's something we could try and design a product around. And so anyway, that's some of the feedback that I gave them about the waste stream. And then of course, again, as you see on the left there, there were a number of stores that were already diverting materials, and we tried to understand from them, like, what is it that's challenging them, and what kind of, and a lot of the answers were really similar to what I had learned in the past 30 years from doing this. Uh, you know, issues about rent and insurance and supply and demand and all sorts of things like that, getting the word out, getting people to come, online inventories, stuff like that. So we learned a lot through that process.
This is just not something we need to dwell on a lot, but this just gives you an idea of how much waste is involved in the actual transportation of materials. One of the goals here would be to keep materials local. When stuff is hauled out to Seneca Meadows to be dumped in the landfill, and these large trucks that probably get like 3 miles per gallon if you're lucky, and they sit there and they idle for a while they're in line, and it's a lot of waste. And what we'd like to do is take this material, put it back into the local economy.
And you don't see any of those lines. They're not circles. They're all linear lines leading out of Ulster County. So we're trying to create loops. We're trying to see things that are being generated in Ulster County and being processed in Ulster County and then being sold in Ulster County. Anyway, thanks.
So one of the things that we observed is that there's also a repair stream, right? That's another way to divert things from going into the landfill, and that's to fix them. If they're reasonably good shape and could be used again or continue to be used, then you're keeping stuff out of the landfill. And lots of times we're very attached to things like, and things we've inherited, and lamps. The most common things that the Repair Cafe covers are listed here. We actually have with us, we're very happy to have with us Susie Fromer from the Repair Cafe, which is kind of sponsored by Sustainable Hudson Valley. When I started 2 years ago, there were 35 repair cafes, I believe, and now there are something like 45 or so. And it's a bunch of grassroots groups of people popping up all over the valley to volunteer to fix stuff and to help people learn how to fix their own stuff as well. It's a wonderful program. Susie helps coordinate all of it, and she does an amazing job. She's on the call today. Susie, I don't know, would you like to add anything?
Sure. Yeah. It's beautiful to see the interest. I think it was hard to make it through COVID, but they are back. Interest is surging. We were on the Today Show in April, and you know, it's hard to know who saw that versus, but it's just, there are so many people interested in doing this and coming to this. And I'm really excited to see how this, the Reuse Center can institute some of our network.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments? That's where I think we've covered our initial program and how we got to almost where we are today. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to questions.
Hi, Barbara. This is Sonia, right? How are you?
Hi, Sonia. I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for doing this and for having us over and all the great work that you guys have been doing. I am I'm interested in recycling and reusing for obvious reasons. I don't think I have to preach too much to the audience here, but I'm focusing a lot of construction and demolition waste. And so the center and the plan that you presented is great. And one of the questions I have is whether you guys have found businesses that go into construction or future to be construction sites that they have to take, there is basically a gut renovation. So ideally, I would have a company or a small recycle business that go and takes all the doors or takes all the windows or takes all the piping. Is there a directory, or have you guys identified businesses that do that? And then just an extra comment, going off of that, is that when we get pricing for demolition, it varies, right? So if I want a guy to come in and salvage a lot of the stuff or try to divert it or do whatever I think it's the right thing to do, is going to be a lot more expensive than just getting the guy to come and demo the thing and take it out into the dumpster. So I think there is a gap in cost that it also exists. And I don't know if there are programs that support businesses that actually are going to take the extra time and take care of this stuff and divert it, or it's just up to the owner, up to the business if they want to do a good job by doing all this good stuff. So that's my comment question. Thank you.
Okay, so two parts. One, is there a directory? And two, how do we support folks that want to do the more expensive route? And Dave, I'm going to let you talk about that, okay? Because that's your area.
As far as the cost?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I understand it, the idea is to encourage deconstruction, and that deconstruction can be a viable business in and of itself, and that adds to the whole motivation. But I know there's a lot more to it than that, so I'll let you answer that.
Okay. Well, so yeah, there's so for this is my 31st year, and every single week of that 31 years or whatever, we've answered the same questions. How do you do it so it doesn't take that much more time or it doesn't cost that much more? And so what we've been working on is on those two challenges from day one, because it prevented us from doing work. So some people would give us a chance and some people would be willing to pay a little more, but generally 95% of people were saying, we love deconstruction if it costs the same and it takes the same amount of time. So we've gotten much faster than we were in the beginning, and that's lowered our costs. And then so we get paid twice to do deconstruction. We get paid when we deconstruct, and then we get paid when we sell the materials, and then we spend less money at the landfill, and we get paid more money for metal recycling. And if you start combining things like that, strategies, or maybe the owner reuses some of their own materials, then you find yourself in a position where you're actually sometimes cheaper than demolition. And then you don't have to work very hard to convince people to do deconstruction when you are cheaper and you didn't take that much longer. So we've completed 5,000 deconstruction projects over those years. So I guess you could say that we've figured it out. And what we are offering Ulster County is, the hope is to do a training there and get people locally up to speed and, erase their learning curve, and get them so they have all of those strategies, all those tools in their tool belt so that they can do that too. And so that we don't have to make hard choices, budgetary choices about deconstruction versus demolition, because it will be, that gap will be a lot closer.
Thank
So-
you. Yeah.
Go ahead, Sonia.
So I'm sorry, Dave, and I wasn't here for the introductions. It's your company. So your company is not local. Your company is from
Yeah, Washington State, yeah.
Washington. Okay.
Yeah, we work all over North America and we help start reuse businesses all over North America. And so we trained a contractor in Binghamton and we helped out in Troy, and we started a operation in Rochester, and one in Buffalo, and one in Ithaca, and like where we were consulting for them, and that sort of thing. So we have a lot of history with that. But what we're really trying to do is get as many people trained up as we can, so that there's some business, or hopefully a dozen, 20 businesses, let's say, in Ulster County and the surrounding region that are, either deconstructing or they're making things out of the deconstructed materials, and that kind of thing. So our hope is to be there for the region, to do whatever training is necessary, and then, you know, sorry, I was looking at some of the comments, to do the training so that we can leave those skills behind, and then you have that as a local businesses that it can do it.
And so as far as identifying businesses that are currently doing something similar, have we found any locally? Maybe Barb, I don't know. Was that part of the study?
Well, part of this is to build up that functionality locally. So far, we have not come across, anybody. That doesn't mean they're not out there doing this quietly in a low key manner, But we have not found anybody blaring on social media or else, or on the internet that, hey, we're doing deconstruction in this area. And yet we have a lot of people who are interested. I mean, just in the last few days, there's been several people that have said, hey, there's a project going on that we could do deconstruction for, or I have a house that I really want to deconstruct, So I think part of it is A, getting the training out there, and B, maybe connecting with people who are somewhere, in the area. I mean, with no guarantees, there's a potential person, Dave was talking to, they've trained in Binghamton. Whether or not they are doing this, we have to follow up, but they have a, demolition business. So
One of the best,
we're trying to grow this at this point.
yeah, and one of the best ways to find deconstruction businesses is to say publicly, there aren't any deconstruction businesses in the area, and then somebody is going to say, hey, I do it, or I'm willing to do it. And so that's almost like a challenge to say, oh, I guess nobody's doing it. And then somebody will come out of the woodwork and say, I've been doing it for 30 years. And so it's, we're excited to find those people and to find out more about what they do. But we're also very excited about getting new businesses started to increase the capacity.
Thank you.
And you asked if there was a directory. Obviously we don't have a directory of deconstruction people. However, in the course of doing all of this, we've identified a lot of reuse-oriented businesses. And we will continue to do that. And I think that list will only grow and grow. So we don't have them all like listed someplace, but that's a good idea. And maybe we can, you know, try to put something like that together if that's also what you're interested in. Michael Hartner.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I think this is great. The presentation is great, and I commend you folks for working on this. The single point I wanted to make is that I think people are throwing things out in a way that ruins them, and that it's important to get the word out to people that when they bring something like a microwave or something like that to the recycling center, to try and keep it and try not to ruin it when you get it there, because I think you're going to be getting things to the, you know, reuse center where they're being salvaged, and they'll be broken and unfixable unless people realize that when they're throwing something like that out, it might be fixable, you know, when it gets to the salvage center or whatever it is you're calling it. So I just think it's important to at this point to try and get that word out that there is this salvage operation in effect, and you know, don't ruin things on their when you bring them to the landfill, to the recycling center.
Yeah, I agree with that. And part of what we've talked about, you know, as we talk about potential options, not just for the Reuse Innovation Center, but a few that we've identified as possible paths for UCRA, you know, is to divert things before they get to the tipping floor, to give people options. And we know that a part of all of this is going to be publicizing that there is a Reuse Innovation Center, publicizing that you know, there's ways to divert waste, incentivizing it. And if we can find a way, you know, to divert waste, whether it's initially at UCRA or by reaching out directly to large businesses that create certain kinds of waste in a regular manner that might be reusable, you know, however far upstream we can divert stuff before it actually gets in a garbage truck. You know, that's what we want to aim for. Because of course, then you're getting better quality materials as well, which is better for anybody that wants to be in this business. I'm going to look in the chat here. So I think people are asking questions. Let's see.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, it's Cynthia. Sorry, turn my video on. I just wanted to ask about, in terms of the agenda for this hour, you know, like I didn't join the first half an hour because I joined that kind of intro hour intro half hour last time. So, you know, I'm sitting on some thoughts about, you know, textiles, but I wasn't sure if now is kind of the time to bring all of that up, or if you're going to do another kind of, this is what we're talking about for the next 45 minutes and go through that. And then like, when should I?
Well, yeah, we're going to have more of a discussion. We have some more slides to go through after this initial Q&A here, and then yeah.
Okay, great.
I'm just going to deal with any other questions quickly, and then I'll get into the second section, and we'll absolutely want to hear from you, because that's the whole idea here.
Yeah.
I have one quick question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Are there relationships yet established between these efforts, such as David has already been doing for these years, and construction companies? As I've been exploring waste and what it means and how to reuse and digging through piles of garbage, as it were, I often see, I couldn't say tons, but I mean, outrageous amounts of material at construction sites that are just thrown into the big green dumpsters and hauled away. Whereas maybe a more enlightened contractor might have a relationship with the kind of stuff that we're talking about. So I guess the question is, have there already been relationships or connections made with contractors and construction in general? Just
Yeah.
thinking about the amount of waste that represents and how much material is there.
Well, this is Dave. I'll answer that really quick because we've gone through this so many times in so many communities. Every time it's similar. It feels like in the beginning we have meetings like this where we're trying to get people interested and let them know that this is coming and to get excited about it and to but if you said to me today, I have a construction site and I have this material, will you come and get it? We would say, not only do we not have a deconstruction company or a hauling company or a reuse store, we don't have any of that in place. So we have to be really careful with the timing of things like that because we want people to be excited. We want them to be anticipating it, but we don't want to let them down. And when they have something great and they are all excited to give it to us and we have no infrastructure at all to take on that material. So we also don't have any time in our budget to do that. So we have to be careful. Now we can refer things to existing infrastructure, and that's what we've done up till now. We've had a couple of people who have said, I've got this, I've got that. And then we look at our list of who's already in Ulster County and we try to refer it to them because they're there and they deserve that material. But you only get one chance to make a first impression. And so we want that to be a real positive for contractors. The contractors often are impatient. And if they don't see you performing at a certain level or meeting their needs, they often won't call back. So that's just some thoughts.
Got it. Thank you.
I have a question. Yeah, actually, would it be okay if I just chimed in quickly with another facet to what, yes to all that Dave said, and it's in this end game of our creating the strategic plan for the Reuse Innovation Center. These are the kinds of things we are doing our best to put into place. So I just threw in the chat how many architects, contractors, and renovators are actually on this call. Certainly Sonia is one. And, as we, finalize our recommendations for the county and contemplate seed funding and business planning for this thing, having a network of, collaborating architects and contractors is going to be an important piece.
Hi, this is Leanne.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Sure, go for it, Leanne.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I've been trying to get it. So it's a little bit of a back topic, back to when we were talking about, I think it was Michael who said, how do we remind people not to ruin items, etc. I'm meeting next week with UCRA and a bunch of the transfer stations to talk to them about that, how I could then come to there, but I don't know really what they're very elusive in what we will be talking about, but does that actually sound like it's something that y'all are addressing?
I'm sorry, Leanne. Can you repeat that?
Well, I heard, Leanne, we have a meeting with UCRA and the transfer stations next week as well about this very issue. And part of our study involved going to the transfer stations, going to the tipping floor, seeing how it all works, seeing, where are the opportunities, and, also seeing where things are beyond, a reasonable effort.
Right.
They've gotten too contaminated and there's only so much time, you have from when it gets dumped on the tipping floor. You have literally at most minutes before it's shoved into the main pile and is gone. So yeah, we've talked about these things with them. We've talked about different strategies, and we want to be very respectful of UCRA and their efforts to date, and the fact that they are already pulling a lot of materials out when it comes to their composting and all their recycling, and then they pull cardboard and they pull scrap metal and other things right off the tipping floor when they have time. And so it's really a lot of times when I'm making a suggestion of how something can be done, I will be the first one to congratulate a group about how good they're already doing, and then say, how can I help? How can I help? You're already doing great amount. Like maybe there's some more money we could throw at this, more staff or whatever. And so we are definitely having those conversations.
Okay, great. All right.
Anybody else before we move on? Excuse me. Sonia.
Yes, sorry. So we do a lot of gut renovations in New York City, and what they have is, when we do the demolition now, is they have the contractor divide the metal from the sheetrock, from the wood, and that's, otherwise they get fined. Is the county, has the county implemented something like that, or is it in the works, or do you have any feedback from the county regarding that type of material?
I'm not aware of what the county does with that, if they have different kinds of regulations versus New York City. But part of what we are talking about is recommending that certain buildings may be subject to deconstruction based on age or size or other characteristics. That's one thing that's been done elsewhere.
But actually, that New York City, we should know more about that, because that might be kind of a, what do you call it, a
Model?
transitional object, or a an easier to swallow first step. We just briefed the Recycling Oversight Committee of the county legislature last night, and there were 5 legislators in the room, and they're very open to policy suggestions. So I think if you can point us to exactly that rule, we can make sure they see it.
Yeah, because when it comes to the big stuff, that there's a lot of it, and if they just have to put it on a pile and just separate it, sometimes that is easier than to start peeling apart the little pieces, which everything is important, but like, how do we tackle all, starting from some and then go to the little things? But yeah, I'll find out for you the actual regulation.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're moving on. So that was all questions Q&A, which was very helpful from the first segment. I think the goals for this session really are to get a lot of feedback from you all. We're going to go through a little more of what we've done since we did the characterization and diversion analysis, and talk about our conceptual plan, the options, considerations of what private versus public partners might do in the Reuse Innovation Center, and how each could best benefit it, and definitely get your discussion going again. And then we'll hear from Cynthia. So, if you came in late, I think you probably are already familiar with the project, and you know what we did in the beginning: analyze the waste stream and identify the best opportunities, and then try to look at business models and existing businesses that might be good partners for diverting those sort of high value materials. And Dave, I put this in again because you wanted to refer to it. We kind of spent a lot of time talking about it earlier.
Yeah, I'll just keep it short. So here's the thing. Today is about entrepreneurs. It's about getting boots on the ground, people who will do this. We can talk about, we can characterize the waste stream. We can talk about strategies and things like that. But what we're really talking about is getting people motivated to start a business, or to include these activities in their existing business, or to expand their existing reuse business. That's what we're really talking about. All of these things are just talk until somebody does them. This is what I've done for 30 plus years. I've diverted, over 100 million pounds from the landfill by actually doing it, not by talking about it. And so we are trying to get people interested. We are trying to get them to do this. We are trying to get them to take the leap. One way to do that is to reduce the entry fee, if you will, to reduce the costs of starting up, to make it easier to join together instead of just taking that leap on your own. Why not take it with 12 other people and know that you're part of like a team instead of just feeling like you're all alone. And so, yeah, we've taken all these steps, and this is a really, really critical one. Is like everyone on the phone should be thinking about anyone they know who, maybe they just work in their garage and they do woodworking in their garage. Maybe they repair jewelry. They have little side business or something like that. Anyone that has any suggestion of who could be part of this, and they don't have to actually go full scale and rent a space within the Reuse Innovation Center. Maybe they live in an apartment and their spare room is their craft room or something like that. Micro businesses are something that we very much want to support. And so we bring up this diagram again to say that this idea of the Reuse Innovation Center could be considered like a business incubator, where if everything goes as planned, it will make starting a business easier. It will make joining the circular economy easier. It'll build up the circular economy in Ulster County and the surrounding region. So, but it's really important that we get as many names and we talk to as many people as possible so that we can get that infrastructure in place so we can do this diversion. Otherwise, it's just talk.
So I think we talked a little bit about this earlier, but we want to divert earlier in the waste stream. We don't necessarily want to wait until things get to UCRA or wait until that they're thrown away. If we can possibly divert them, at the point of origin, because we're working with businesses that generate a lot of waste that's reusable, then we want to do that. And before the tipping floor, the reference here is that, the tipping floor in Ulster County at UCRA is where large trucks and small trucks come in and they dump stuff, and it gets, briefly looked at, sorted. Certain things can be pulled out, but a lot of it winds up going on out to the landfill at Seneca Meadows. And the question is there a way for people to, even at UCRA, before they get in there, maybe you can put the stuff that might be usable by somebody outside and have it looked at before it proceeds on into the tipping floor. That's been suggested, and there's different ways to do that. And then regulations have been instituted in different places to make sure that certain materials be diverted, that deconstruction, for example, there's a deconstruction ordinance that went into place in Portland that homes over or buildings over a certain age had to be deconstructed, so those materials would be salvaged. Also, Jason's rejoining us, okay. Also, it's possible to regulate that certain materials be sorted by large businesses. Recyclable materials can be sorted up front and put aside that are not being done now. And then there's incentives that may be other possibilities. So, Dave, am I missing anything?
No, I mean, that's a good overview. The thing is, we're already involved in all of those things. I did all the training in Portland and built up the infrastructure there. And we worked in Seattle where they had incentive programs where they pay homeowners a certain dollar amount if they choose deconstruction over demolition, the carrot versus the stick, right? The stick was, Portland, where they mandated deconstruction. The carrot was Seattle, where they rewarded deconstruction. And as far as diverting materials, like King County, Washington, for example, they've banned cardboard from the landfill. For example, they won't allow you to throw cardboard away, and it's one of several bans that they put in place now. Metal, cardboard, I can't remember what else, food waste, and they're just systematically trying to remove these things from the landfill, so that the large generator of those type of materials are incentivized. I mean, well, they're not incentivized; they're mandated to divert them. So we see all those things happening, and these different regulations, the different strategies being used in different communities.
Okay. This is totally just an example. This does not mean that somebody has signed up, but this chart here, it was intended as kind of an example of the sorts of things that are high value materials and that are easily accessible, especially things that, come out of C&D debris, and that people might want to be able to, even as individuals, set aside and help divert. And that could be handled by real businesses. And again, these businesses are examples. We have no partnerships with any of these businesses, and we're still, of course, at the point where we're trying to come up with a concrete, actionable plan for the Reuse Innovation Center. But these are the sorts of businesses that are viable and that work. And so just give you some ideas. So Sabrina, if you're still on, we haven't assumed that you're moving into the Reuse Innovation Center, but Sabrina is a wonderful example of an artist who reuses hard plastics to make amazing sculptures. And textiles, I think we have Cynthia on the call.
Yep, I'm here.
So, all right, any questions about, well, let me just move on and we'll get to the discussion section. How about that? This chart here is another way of looking at the physical location. And again, this does not take into account outdoor space, which would be vitally important for covered storage that's unheated and for parking and for other outside area that you need in a potential physical site. But this is intended to give you an idea of the percentage of space based on a 50,000 square foot location, as Dave has projected it, of what each of these functions, how much physical space it would take up as a percentage of that building. Dave, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, one of the things about a reuse center is that, every one of them needs a bathroom, everyone needs an office, if everyone is going to have a repair station in it, they take up room. And when you have a huge building, they don't take up a lot of room. But the smaller the building, the larger the percentage an office would take up, so if you only have 5,000 square feet, the office may have to be smaller or whatever, but we have shown over and over and over again that anybody who wants to divert volume needs space, because you're essentially taking such a wide variety of materials, and there's such a variety of ways that they need to be stored and different types of racks and everything, but it's just a large volume of materials, and people need that kind of selection to be able to find what they're looking for in the reuse world. To get that to meet that demand, you have to have a lot of supply available in most cases. So yeah, this is based on 50,000 square feet. If we made it smaller, the brown boxes there would be larger because they would each be taking up a higher percentage of the building. So
And a thought that I kind of unexpectedly for me came up yesterday in the meeting we had with the Ulster County um, um, Recycling Committee was that basically of how important it is of how the thing is organized. And, you know, so this sales floor indoor warehouse, and we're kind of picturing it being almost like a used materials Home Depot. It would be organized, it would be neat, it would be accessible, and you'd be able to find what you need. It's not just going to be some large dump storage area. Presentation matters, and, you know, ease of finding what you want matters. So, and then for the higher end showroom, I think we're thinking of things that have been created that are, you know, a little more high end, like very nice furniture, perhaps art, perhaps, you know, things that might be part of fixtures in the household, you know, whatever makes sense for that. And I don't know, Dave, if in your experience that usually involves is that appliances too? You know, what would you put in your higher end showroom?
Well, I think one thing is when you go into Home Depot, you expect warehouse pricing. And when you go into a high-end showroom, you expect to pay more, frankly. And so the sales environment is really important. And we try to create the right environment for these materials. Like if something is really high quality and really valuable and has you know, been made by one of our members, you know, we want to display that in an appropriate environment. So that's earlier when I was saying that the showroom space has lower ceilings, better lighting, and maybe, you know, rugs or something like that on the floor, whereas the warehouse is concrete and high ceilings and that sort of thing. So so yeah, we do, you know, expect that a lot of the value-added products that are made will be displayed in there, and then some of the higher end things. And yeah, some appliances could be in that category, uh, but you know, it depends on. It will become more clear when a building is selected. And if I'm involved in like designing that building, I would be factoring that in because, um, yeah.
Okay. So recommended critical path, capitalize, incubate, and then scale is the overall picture of what we're envisioning. Um, this is kind of the flow of things, right? Secure startup capital, and we'll get into, you know, funding ideas in a subsequent slide. Recruit and hire a manager. Then we find what we suggested, what we're thinking about here, and this is not necessarily what will happen, is to find an incubation site and install minimal equipment so we can actually get started. That may or may not be the larger reuse innovation center, but it would be a sort of proof of concept and a way to start forming connections, getting work done, you know, starting up a deconstruction business, make sure training happens, identify customers, because this is again intended to be all about circular economy. So we're taking in materials, and we also have to have a route to sell or otherwise dispose of those materials. Then the deconstruction business starts operating. And as soon as the deconstruction business starts operating, as Dave has pointed out to us many times, they start acquiring materials that can then be sold or reused or made into something else. So that a deconstruction business, if it has some initial projects, starts bringing in marketable materials and generating revenue very early. That makes deconstruction key in initiating this. And from there, you can expand business recruitment and be training people, because deconstruction, as Dave always points out, is an opportunity to train people in a lot of different areas because there's so much to it. And then additional businesses can come in. make sure we have member businesses in crucial areas so that we do have a whole viable ecosystem and internal flow of materials and skills and mutual support. And then you can get into broader training with participating businesses in all of their areas. Am I missing anything here, Dave or Melissa?
Looking good.
Okay. Critical success factors. Okay, so number one is support. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, we have a wonderful opportunity here in that Ulster County is very supportive. We met yesterday with the recycling committee. As I mentioned, there were 5 legislators there. Everybody was talking about how do we do this, and in process, nobody was against the idea. So that's an excellent sign. Facility characteristics, that's all based on, careful identification and evaluation of what materials we want to work with and what we think we can do with them and what, works synergistically with other things. And of course, we want to minimize costs to start up, and we want to avoid, dealing with materials that we kind of ruled out materials or material processes that incur a lot of expense. And also we want to be able to zone it easily somewhere where it's accessible to people, as well as where we can do some light manufacturing. So there's all those considerations come into facility characteristics. Startup capital, including sweat equity. Melissa, why don't you talk about the sweat equity idea, if you don't mind?
Well, it's my understanding, from Dave, that really there's 2 layers to this thing. One is the RIC as a whole with the manager and, whatever relationship it may have to the county or a steering committee. But then the member businesses, people are coming in to start businesses or to relocate or expand their existing businesses. So I think there's just natural assumption that there will be the value of sweat equity, people investing in their own businesses, not so much giving away labor to the big thing, but the whole ethic that we've kind of taken on from Dave is just the sort of team spirit. So that's all it is.
And of course, getting the team in place, and marketing is going to be very important. And that's another thing that we're hoping that the county can help us get the word out on in their way. But each individual business also needs to have their own marketing plans, as well as for the overall RIC and making people aware that it's there. And then we're going to get into, this slide is about what we think the county is best able to and prepared, hopefully, to do versus private partners. And the next slide will be what we think what we envision private entities and partners being able to do. So the county and New York State and others, other organizations already collect and maintain information on the waste stream. So that's already something in place. And this whole exercise, as well as work done by the Zero Waste team and the county and others, have gone into this project. And of course, funding, we'll get into more detailed suggestions or ideas or, funding sources that we have identified thus far. But to the degree that the county is willing to, and this would be a legislative act, fund overhead expenses at a location, we think that would be extremely helpful. Dave has mentioned before that the hardest thing was, getting a location in the beginning, and it took them a long time to find the right location. And if we have some funding up front, for that in particular, that's the biggest expense, right? Rent is always the biggest expense. And that's something that could possibly, the cost of that could peter out over time if the county is willing to support the rent or possibly buy a location or let us use a location that they already have. Seed capital, ongoing incentives for diversion could be, directed toward large companies, organizations, as well as potentially small businesses that were starting up or existing businesses. And if, another thing that would be helpful, if we have a facility and the county can help with the maintenance of that, that would be great. Ulster County, I think, Melissa, you were talking about Ulster County is initiating a location for workforce development. Is that correct?
Yeah, they have announced that they're creating what's called the Center for Workforce Innovation it's going to be housed at the iPark 87, the former IBM site. So there's, having something that's convenient to there at a minimum would be really cool. I would mention, the training that Dave has offered, and I'd love to hear from you all in the chat, the kinds of training that you know about in these domains. It's not just hands-on deconstruction, it's warehousing, it's retailing, it's logistics. And so, we're trying to get a sense of things we can recommend to the county that are, that connect this project to their broader green economy agenda.
And last but not least, legislation. The legislature needs to be behind us, and we think that they are. But expenditures obviously has to come through them, and the next phase of this whole thing after our initial project, which this is part of, would be probably a new RFP from the county, from the legislature, supported by the legislature, in order to get this thing started. What private partners can do, the things you do best, right? Business planning, operations, marketing, market intelligence. And partnerships are crucial. I mean, this whole thing really is about partnerships, working together, synergy, as Dave talked about earlier, working together as a team in order to make things easier for everybody. Hiring, training. This is purely one example of a getting started to-do list that Dave had from a different specific reuse innovation center that's getting started elsewhere. This is the first 11 items out of 200 item list. Just, kind of an example. Dave, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so I think the idea was to give you just a snapshot of what it takes, and the building search. Yeah, that's number one, because for this group that's starting in Central Washington State, that is a big challenge. There are only so many buildings that they could possibly use or occupy that are big enough and that are cheap enough, and so they're really stressed about that. That's the number one on our to-do list. And we did get a grant to start the Reuse Innovation Center there, and I'm helping them do that. And so they're interested in I mean, they've got to deal with insurance, and they've got to hire staff, and they've got to deal with budgetary issues, and right off the bat, they only have limited funding, and they want every dollar to count until they can start generating revenue to take the pressure off of external funding. So yeah, these are just some examples of what we're going through.
Okay, so here are some different models, and I think Dave can talk about this, but these are different RIC models, just to give you an idea. Ultimately, this will be a decision by Ulster County and entities within Ulster County as to what they want to do. But we have our recommendation here at the bottom. And as you can see, RICs can take a lot of different forms and be a lot of different models. So it's entirely flexible in terms of the needs of an individual community. And we're recommending that the government provides location or seed funding to get started, because that's the initial hurdle that's hardest to overcome. But then it be privately run, whether through contract or otherwise. And Dave has noted that a nonprofit could be involved so that tax deductible materials could be donated. Dave, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I think the one of the themes about yesterday was choice and diversity, choice, options, whatever. So every community we go to, we change the plan. We have 200 different business plans for 200 different businesses, because everybody does it differently. And even the different reuse innovation centers are run differently, and they're different sizes. And Ulster County, it feels like it's going to be the largest one, and it has some support to help support that. Madison, Wisconsin could be another one that would be large, because it has that, hopefully is going to have that support to back it up. It's really an investment for those government entities, to say, look, you should expect a return on your investment. If you're investing money in us, then we better be diverting a lot of material back for you, and that provides you a benefit. So but yeah, I love this slide, because it basically says, hey, we're going to make this work no matter what the conditions. We're going to keep tweaking things until it get it to work. And but really, it comes down to, like, when you do it on your own, it takes so much more time, and it's on such a smaller scale, that's the negative of that. Like, Bellingham is going great, and I paid for everything. There's no loan or anything from a bank, for example. But the bottom line is, it's not the kind of volume that Ulster County needs. It has, we have to start something bigger.
I'm going to try to speed this up, because I want us to have time to talk with everybody. So funding options, ultimately, as I said, Ulster County has to make the decision about what we're going to do in terms of rent versus buy and so forth. And we've identified these potential funding sources for a lot of the pieces of what we're doing. None of them are, guaranteed, obviously, but they're definitely some of them could work. So, okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this either, unless somebody, feels they need to add something important here. Okay. What skills and functions quickly, deconstruction industry, I've talked about that, and so has Dave, about the importance of that. The C&D supply chain, I think we understand that is a rich source of materials. Out of all the sources, that is a very rich source of materials, and we need to make sure that we are connecting with all of those parties that could be involved. Business management for the RIC, obviously, very important. And specific business planning with entrepreneurs that want to be involved. How to incubate deconstruction. I don't know, Dave, if we want to spend a lot of time on this, but go for it.
I think I would say that this slide was created for another presentation. And really, what we really should say is how to incubate all of the businesses, and textiles and everything. And involving someone like Cynthia to come in and to remove some of the barriers, do some training, manage some aspect, whatever it is. But whatever it is, we want to create the conditions, the success conditions, low rent or temporarily removing rent, working together, sharing expenses. Hey, we don't all need a forklift. We could share a forklift, for example. and things like that. That's what I'm looking to do with all of the reuse innovation centers, to make, to create those conditions that people are going to succeed, and to try and avoid mistakes.
I don't know if we can, maybe we can skip this slide. I mean, I don't know if we need
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. We're out of time, so almost.
Yeah, so
Yeah, let's hear from folks.
let's hear from folks indeed.
Would it be okay if I jumped in? Because I have to leave in 6 minutes.
Absolutely, go for it.
Great, thank you. Could I also share my screen for a minute? Would that be okay?
Fine with me. Hold on a second.
Okay, I just need someone to enable the sharing.
I'm just doing that. Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, great. I just wanted to share like an idea of kind of what I was thinking about as related to the textile piece of all of this. And I know, we had talked about what you already have and haven't done. So this is just kind of how I think about, the textile piece of this. So I just wanted to share. So like, I kind of think about, okay, you have to get the material back from places like Joann's or right, who might be, however it's entering the waste stream, like, can we, right, go back up the stream to get it before it enters the waste stream? And then you sort it for your value. You do that on site. There would be training, there would be, a job related to this and ongoing work at the Reuse Innovation Center. Then there are all these types of things that can happen with those clothes after they're sorted. They can be repaired, resold, upcycled, remanufactured, recycled, downcycled. Some of that can happen on site, some of that can happen off site, some of that you don't want to do on site, like recycling, for example, and you would work with a partner like a HelpSee. And then also I see this opportunity to have, as you all were talking about, there are positive kind of revenues associated with this, where you could have a resale shop, you could be selling to thrift stores, you could be also having like remanufactured items sold, as well as a workshop on site where you have machines and space and labor and all of that. So as an example, like these are kind of the key functions you would need. And this is my last slide, so I won't take more time, but like you need intake and sorting to be able to take all of that, that textile and figure out what's going to be resold, what, condition grade, basically everything. Then you have maybe inventory for reuse, where you keep the high value items that are going to be given to local businesses for them to create these remanufactured items. You have a reuse workshop with sewing machines and big tables for people to, work on this stuff or repair. And then you have a retail space, and maybe that's part of the larger, retail space that you were talking about. That's, high quality furniture and all. I think it would be amazing to have it all together in one space. I think that would be very inspiring. So, like for me, what I would be interested, and I can share this with you all, but like I would be really interested in helping set up that whole process and figure out, where are we going to start? What do we need to, who do we need to talk to? Like, how are we going to set up the spaces? How many tables do we need? And how are we sorting? And what's our standard operating procedure? And all of that. So that's what I wanted to share with you all before I had to leave. So we could talk about it offline more, but I just wanted to share those slides.
Thank you. That's great. That's great. And yeah, if you could just send us those if you like, or a link to them.
Yeah, I will, absolutely.
So any questions from anybody else? How can we, what do you think about this business model in working with the Reuse Innovation Center?
Before we lose any more people, I wanted to just say, this is Dave. I just wanted to say, if anybody knows of anybody who might be interested and should join this focus group that we could connect with and try and as this develops, stay in touch with, that would be really, really helpful.
I see Lisa's hand up.
Go for it, Lisa. You're muted.
Yes, hello. Nope, I should be good now. Hello, thank you. Wonderful presentation and very excited about this model. My really good friend started the Life Cycle Building Center in Atlanta, so I very much get this, though Dave, haven't been to any of your amazing reuse innovation centers. I shared a link earlier for the website allforreuse.org, the ecosystem map that they have. there's loads that are missing from there, right? There's loads of entities that are not on there that should be on there. And given what Dave just said, I wonder if we're on to actually create a hyper localized version of an ecosystem map. So you actually map out, and then you make this visually available, right? So that everyone can see, here are the existing players, right? And then, you know, that I think just kind of creates this understanding of the existing landscape, and then what are the opportunities then from there.
I would answer quickly because I know folks will need to drop. We have a good relationship with the Vassar College student mappers. They do a lot of GIS and story mapping. I know there are other mapping tools like Kumu where you can, you know, make spreadsheets and code them different ways and then generate visual maps that are cool, but all of that is possible. None of that is guaranteed. Okay, please follow up with us however you can and think about your people as well as how you could be involved.
Okay, and I put my email in the chat if anyone wants to send questions, ideas, people that you think might be good partners for us, or ideas you might have for partnering, please do send it along. Anybody else have any questions? You're welcome to keep going if you like. Hi, Jenny.
Hi there. I didn't have anything other than just to say good luck with this effort. I think it's really important.
Oh, thank you.
It's great.
We think so too.
Thanks for allowing me to lurk.
All right, thanks, folks. Looks like nobody has anything else. Again, if you have any questions, please email us because we do want to hear from you and continue to have this conversation as we go forward.
Thanks, everybody. See you later. Bye.